D, it often uses to represent Jesus Christ as well, immortality, resurrection, and life after death. So that's the Phoenix there. Again, I'll pull out the Cariel Visconti deck in a different video and talk about that a bit more. Here is Faith. Again, you might be familiar with all these iconography here with the chalice and the cross there, and that's the dog. Thomas Aquinas, according to which faith is an act of intellect that gives its consent to the divine truths through control of will, brought into existence from God by means of mercy. Now I have to have another cup of coffee and really sit down with that, because I think I need to chew that a bit further. And then we go into the fifth set here, the planets and the stars. This is, of course, a worldview where the world is the center of the universe. This is before Copernicus. Is that Copernicus? Yep. An astronomer, before he says, yeah, actually the sun is the center of our universe, or of this particular one anyway. So this is the moon. The moon is represented as a woman on a chariot pulled by 2 horses. And then traditionally this is Diana, apparently twin sister of Apollo, moon goddess. If Apollo brought light with the sun, Diana brought darkness with the moon. So that's interesting. So it says that this card here apparently faced together with, hold on a second. There it is. There it is. So moon and star, and moon and sun. And in the sun card is a very sort of random person falling off the sky there, and some scorpion just sort of floating on air or falling or something. But we'll talk about that when we get to that section of the book. So Mercury, Greek god Hermes or Hermes. The usual stuff, caduceus, the winged cap, the winged sandals here, a rooster, and then 2 snakes around the caduceus, a physical representation of good and evil among men, maintained from Mercury's wand, who controls the balance. The wing stands for the primacy of intelligence, who stands above the matter to dominance through knowledge, and Mercury was also known as god of commerce. So intelligence through knowledge, power through knowledge. There's a flute that he's playing. There's a head that is cut off at the bottom there. Apparently that might be Perseus. Something to do with the Gorgons. I'm not very well versed in my Greek mythology. And then we go to Venus. So there's the 3 graces. There's Cupid, her son, and there's doves, which is also associated with Venus, but there's a form of a cross almost, like that. And then there's the she-shell here, and there's the 3 graces holds myrtle and a flaming heart. A myrtle is evergreen like love. And the composition here have been likened to Piero della Francesca, which is that famous artist from the 1400s. And he has a painting that I recall very clearly in my head of a Duke and Duchess of, hold on a second. So the image that I remember him from is this particular one here. This one here, which is the Duke and Duchess of Urbino. So that's one painting that we had to study in high school. And here in the book, Cristina Dorsini quoted this particular painting here, which is very, very similar in composition to this one here, with the river in the middle of the composition there, the seashell that John the Baptist is holding over the character Jesus there, of the figure of Jesus there, up there, the 3 muses here, and the dove above there, and that's apparently that's a seashell. That's Jesus, that's John the Baptist, and there is this river or body of water cutting across in the middle of the composition here. So the theory is that these guys met, that Piero della Francesca and Mantegna met in the 1400s in Ferrara. So this connection could confirm the theory according to which Piero della Francesca met Andrea Mantegna in Ferrara in 1450, where probably Mantegna saw some draft of the work yet to be completed and sort of was inspired by it. So that's interesting. This is the sun, and I think this was, again, their sun here is anthropomorphic sun on the right hand, which is very much recalling the 31, where the sun has a face, that one there. So that one there. And then there is this Scorpio, and this is child falling from the sky. So the theory is that the Scorpion is linked to the myth of Orion, a giant huntsman placed by Zeus, father of the gods, among the stars, as the constellation of Orion. When Apollo came to know about the affection of her sister for the hunter, he objected and sent a giant scorpion to kill Orion. So when Zeus found out what happened, he became very angry, and from the top of the Olympus struck the scorpion dead with a lightning bolt. Moreover, he decided to place Orion and his dog among constellations, and since then, the constellation of Orion shines in the northern hemisphere. Not far from there shines also the star Sirius from the constellation of Canis Major, and it is the brightest of the northern hemisphere. The constellation of Scorpius rises exactly when the Orion one sets, so that the Scorpion cannot threaten the giant anymore. So that's interesting. And then the character falling from the sky, this one here, they probably thought that's Icarus, and because his father, Daedalus, after giving his son a proper burial after Icarus sort of dropped from the sky because he flew too close to the sun and basically melted his wax-composed wings, apparently his father then erected a temple in honor of Apollo. So this one here, Mars, now god of war, is seated on the throne or a chariot, wearing an armor, helmet, sword, and then there's a dog, which is apparently sacred to Mars. This reminds me of a particular chariot card that I found quite intriguing because of its seemingly very stagnant. This is the Inaibi Giovanni Facchetta. Is that how you pronounce that? I do apologize. Anyone who speaks Italian, please let me know. I would love to be able to pronounce these things properly without wondering. There it is. So I'm thinking, you know, I thought this chariot is a little interesting, and then I thought, maybe this chariot is Mars himself. You see that? Anyway, we'll talk about that in a separate video. Do you know what I mean by all these trajectories and tentacles of inquiries and these rabbit trails? And then we go to Jupiter, which is the chief king of all the gods. And again, there is a sort of echo of the card number 10, the Pope, with the thing here. And this also apparently alluded to amygdala, works as a reference to God. It represents the connection between two worlds, two different dimensions, spiritual and material, human and divine. Here referred to Jupiter's supreme deity. And then there's a bolt here, and an eagle with an open wing. Then potentially there's a child there. And then this has been theorized as having to do with the myth of Ganymede. Jupiter fell in love with a beautiful boy, so he came down in the form of an eagle and brought him to Mount Olympus, where Ganymede became cupbearer to the gods. In the plain, under the amygdala, okay, there's all this bodies and things. And then this is Saturn. Saturn is derived from the Greek deity Cronus, the youngest of the Titans, son of Uranus, the sky, and Rhea, the earth. According to Greek mythology, Cronus, since he was predicted that one of his sons would have replaced him, started to devour them one at a time. His wife Rhea saved only Zeus, the sixth son. And then Zeus grew up in Crete, and then he came back and asked his dad to give back all the devoured sons and remove him from his throne, and Zeus became the supreme father of the gods instead. A scythe here. He also have the sort of attribute of the god of time, the Ouroboros somewhere. Where's the Ouroboros? And then the dragon eating its own tail, or that one there. And then it also sort of echoed card 32, Chronicle. So we'll go to card 32 and have a look. There it is. So the Ouroboros there, the dragon eating its own tail. Cyclical nature of time, I guess. Yep, symbol of cyclical time. And then we move on to the 8th sphere. According to the Aristotelian Ptolemaic model, the 8th sphere indicates the fixed star's sky, which contains inside of it, like many concentric spheres, the skies or the planetary orbits. In the 2nd century, Ptolemy wrote up a catalogue of 1,022 stars grouped in 48 constellations. The 8th sphere is represented as a winged character holding in his hand the celestial sphere, or the sky full of stars. The character has his feet on the white sphere, standing for the planets. His face and gaze are oriented at the sphere. So there is that white sphere again. And this is the second to last card, called Prime Movement. According to the medieval and Renaissance astronomy, the prime movement is the first and most external of the cosmological spheres, which turn around Earth in the geocentric model of the universe. The movement that sets in motion stars and planets starts from it. The concept was introduced by Aristotle, who thought that the celestial bodies moved on concentric spheres around Earth. Stars in heavens were like mounted inside those spheres. It was the motion of the same spheres to move them, bringing them with themselves. I don't quite understand that. Since planets seems to follow an irregular trajectory instead of the furthest ones, which appeared as fixed, Aristotle theorized that they were not moved by a single sphere, but from a group of spheres. Those planets placed over Earth, according to an astronomical conception theorized also by Plato, were 7 in total. The last heaven was the one with the fixed stars, or prime movement, which set in motion the other ones. It was the first heaven, or the most external shell of the universe, on which the other stars were placed. The prime movement moves for a lust of intellect, so looks at God as its final cause. Here it is represented as a winged character holding a white sphere in his hands, his left leg lifted almost to touch the sphere with his knee. Only his right foot is on that sphere there. I need to sit a little bit more with that. And that's the final one, which is the prime cause, the causa, or the prima causa. I've learned to understand God as the causa prima when I was in high school, the prime cause of all things. Prime cause, or prime motor, is strictly linked to the prime movement, since it is set in motion directly from the prime cause, comparable to a deity. It is a concept that represents the first cause of becoming, of the universe. Since every transformation has its cause at the beginning of the sequence of causes and effects, there must be, according to Aristotle, a cause without a cause, or prime cause, a motionless source causing motion. In becoming, as intended by Aristotle, every step from power to the act involves a being act. So the transformation of the egg in chick involves the existence of a hen. Only the being in act makes possible for a being to evolve. The ontological argument becomes theological to demonstrate the need of being in act. Aristotle says that God is the prime cause of every movement. He is indeed the quote-unquote engine, because it also is the final aim at which everything is oriented, and it is quote-unquote static because it is causeless, since it is already fulfilled in itself as a quote-unquote pure act. The characteristics of its being quote-unquote pure derives from the fact that in God, as a fulfilled act, there is no presence of substance, which is subject to continuous transformations and therefore to decomposition. The representation is a typical vision of the cosmos of Aristotle, and it is a model of subdivision of the spheres. Heaven, God abode, and all his chosen ones. 10th heaven, prime cause. 9th heaven, crystalline. 8th heaven of the firmament. 7th Saturn heaven. 6th Jupiter. 5 Mars, 4 Sun, 3 Venus, 2 Mercury, 1 Moon. And there it is. This is Andrea Mantegna's. These are works by Andrea Mantegna that are clearly Andrea Mantegna there. And so these are the basis of their theory. Well, among others, there are events as well around history and his movement around the 1400s, and his work here. This is by him, Battles of the Tritons and Marine Gods, 1458. So that's it, the Mantegna Tarot, and I will talk to you in a different video about those other rabbit trails that I would like to follow through in terms of their similarities and echoes to the more familiar various tarots that are more familiar to us. So I'll talk to you then.